We are live. Hi, Sarah. How are you? We are here on Dr. Tim on Project Next Media. And Project Next Media is a new independent media company that is freeing you from the fear and hate of the regular media, of the national media that is just trying to use scare tactics to make you click. And so when we saw that that type of media wasn't worth our while, we said, let's do our own. Let's make our own in which we try to not scare people, give people the truth, give people what they need to hear to lead better lives. And so that's what we're here to do today on Dr. Tim. Today we're going to talk about Noro Virus, the cruise ship virus, following up on that. Sarah has some bad news about that. And we're going to talk about some recalls and recalling of food, including tuna that's being recalled right now, and what you need to do about that, and a little bit about what hip replacements and giving birth have in common.
I have no idea about that one.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about it. So here we are. So Sarah, norovirus, we talked all about it, and Dr. Tim, I think episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And now we have a personal experience.
I wish I didn't have this story to tell you all, but my family and I just are mostly recovered from the norovirus. It has been awful. But before we had that stomach bug issue, our house, like my husband last Wednesday, he came up in the morning and he goes, "Our sewage is in our basement." And I was like, "What?" And that was a whole ordeal, which I might talk about on my show about the plumbing, just to get the plumbing fixed. We still are getting it fixed right now.
Yeah.
My neighbor's yard is got so many holes in it and they're fixing it, but they've stopped because of the weather. So they didn't come out yesterday or today. But anyway, so we packed up and stayed at Chris's mom's house, Liz, who is a big fan of the show. Shout out to Liz. Love you so much. We stayed at her house, and that night, once we were all in bed, I was in Liz's bed with my 6-year-old Adeline. She woke up at 9 at night throwing up everywhere, and she threw up every 20 minutes
Poor Adeline.
until 2:30 in the morning.
Every 30 minutes.
It was 20 minutes, and then it went to 30 minutes towards the end of the, and then not having a house with that, and then on Friday I got it. I started getting sick, and then Adeline was still homesick. We kept her at mother-in-law's house. Liz watched her while I was sick.
Ripped through the whole family.
And then Chris started getting sick right before Micah and Asher got off the bus. And then as soon as Asher got off the bus, he goes, "I want to eat healthy. I need something healthy to eat so I don't get sick." And he must have said that because he wasn't feeling good. And this is the kid that's scared of throwing up.
Oh, no.
And then he threw up everywhere. And then Chris goes, "I can't help him." So I had to get up out of bed and I had to take care of Asher. And then Asher threw up like 15 times.
So
the rest of the day.
Norovirus. We started talking about it as the cruise ship virus. That's what it's known as. Because people get it on cruise ships. And, when preparing for this show, I was looking to see when's the last time it's happened on cruise ships. It's happening right now on multiple
that makes
cruise
sense
ships.
because a lot of people have it. It was spreading around in our kindergarten class. That's how we got it in kindergarten.
Just everywhere. And the flu is out there right now. And so it's not a great time, but it is a great time to remember to wash your hands. So when it comes to norovirus, it's a pretty strong virus. It has like a protein kind of capsule around it in some way that makes it strong. And the reason I'm telling you that is that when you use the alcohol rubs, like Purell, etc., it doesn't actually get through that and doesn't kill norovirus. So that's not good enough to kill norovirus. It is good enough to kill the flu, to kill COVID, to kill other things. So it's,
so other stomach bugs, but not this one.
Other stomach bugs are the respiratory viruses, etc. But the Purell, which has alcohol in it, isn't enough. So you need to wash your hands. And the reason you need to wash your hands with soap isn't that the soap kills the virus. That's not what happens. The soap actually gets under it and lifts it off of your hands and brings it down the drain. So it's not just running your hands over water. It's actually lathering up, washing your hands, and scrubbing for 20-30 seconds.
Yeah. So singing the ABCs, I think that's what the kids are taught to do.
ABCs, or sometimes twice. And so, getting that done is extremely important to stop the spread of it. In terms of being contagious, the first of all, the symptoms should last only 24 to 48 hours, and the symptoms are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal discomfort, and cramping. But if you're having symptoms like that for more than 3 days, it's very likely not norovirus,
And should you go to the
and then you
doctor?
should go to the doctor, right? And you should make sure what's happening
Yeah,
is not
we
something much
had
more serious.
we had diarrhea with it too, and the kids did. Even after getting better, they're having it. Um, it is definitely, it seemed like to me a worse stomach bug than the other ones because I had just had one. Asher brought home one in November, and
That's
this one
bad.
was worse.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And you just gotta try to stay hydrated as much as you can,
Yeah.
and get some
I drank a
fluids into
lot of
you.
Gatorade. My kids drank a lot of ginger ale. They liked that.
All right. So hand washing is huge. It's also good to know that it's still contagious and stays on surfaces for days after you have it. So the first thing you should do once you finally get out of bed and you feel a little bit better is clean everything. And that includes clean your bathroom, and you have to look on the back of whatever cleaning product you're using to see that it lists norovirus,
That's what,
because not
yeah.
all of them do.
So my husband looked it up on ChatGTP, and he's telling me the stuff you're telling me. He's like, "Did you know the norovirus lives longer than the regular ones?" And he
Yes,
was
it
like, "It
does.
could be weeks." He said it could be like 2 weeks.
It can be weeks. And so you have to clean that up, look on the back of it. And if it's not, you can take regular household bleach, take about,
That's what
5
we
tablespoons or so, put
that's
it
what
in
we
a
did.
gallon of water and use that to scrub up.
Yeah, and then we also had sewage in the basement. So we really, as soon as Chris got feeling better, he steamed the basement, then he steamed our house. And we were lucky enough to prevent Micah from getting it.
What do you mean by steamed?
I don't know. He
How did
took
the
some steam mop, some
Okay,
hot
steam up.
steam and
Well, it
steam
has to
mopped.
be like over 150 degrees to kill it. So one thing about norovirus is that it doesn't die from freezing it. You
Right.
can't freeze it. So if it's on your food and you put it into the freezer,
It stays on there.
And you have to get pretty 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So boiling water would certainly take care of that. But yeah, gotta
I
get
wonder if
pretty
he
hot.
put bleach in the steam. I don't know. I'll have to
Okay.
ask him.
Yeah.
Because I know he read up on what kills it, and he was
Sure.
surprised. He was like, "This is worse than a normal bug."
Yeah, it can stay around and get other people as they come into your home or not.
But Micah stayed at his dad's some over the weekend, and we cleaned, and so far Micah has not gotten it.
Good.
So
Do you
hopefully he
like
won't.
to be like so when I'm sick, I just want no one to touch me. I go
Right.
into the basement. Please stay away from me.
Right.
I don't really want people to kind of even like serve me kind of things. I just like, please let me be in a dark room. Are you one of people like that, or do you like to be? I know some people that are like, please like cuddle me.
No,
massage my
I
back."
want to be left alone. But I mean, I normally would like to be left alone because of just me being a mom with 3 children.
Uh-huh.
I'm normally very bombarded by people that want my attention, and I want to give that to them. So if I don't feel good, I normally would like space. But
Okay.
that was the hardest part, was me still being sick, taking care of my children.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk a minute about the privilege of being sick,
Mm,
because
good.
it really made me appreciate things. Not having a home where I could flush the toilets and use the laundry and use the shower when I was sick um, was hard. We can use it now because it's just going in a hole that they're sucking out when they come. So gross.
Mm-hmm.
But so you know, there are people that don't have a great house to be sick in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking about, not everybody gets paid when they're sick.
That's right.
And some people lose their job for being sick.
Yeah.
And I was just fortunate that, like, if my husband gets sick, he can not work that day and he's
Right.
fine. If he
Right.
doesn't like lose pay. But not everybody gets that.
So,
And
I mean, worker protections are so important across the board to make sure that people can take care of themselves and that we give them health care.
and think about how many people are sick right now. Like, schools have been closing because of sickness in the area. Think about how many people are sick right now. So it's really hit Southern Indiana. I'm sure many other places around the world in the country are being are being hit really hard too. And it just makes me feel for people that struggle. So, whenever I was sick, I just kept thinking of that. And I was so grateful when we could use laundry and wash the sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
They call it, they call this the tax on working people, right? Where you can't afford to miss, your day of work. You can't afford to miss your transportation to work because you're going to get hit on that
and
in terms of having to pay for it. Whereas someone who has a more, executive job or white collar job or whatever, it's part of, the agreement that's been made. But if, your employer is treating you as expendable, that's kind of what
if you
happens.
can miss and you don't get paid for it, maybe you were depending on that money to pay your bills.
That's right. That's right.
Um, so I just worry about the people. I know a lot of people in my area work multiple jobs.
Hmm.
And when I had it, for those few hours when the kids were at school and Ada was being taken care of by my mother-in-law, there was no way I could have worked that day. I could not have driven anywhere. I could not have done a job. And yeah, it gives me, I'm so blessed that I'm able to be sick,
Yeah.
even though it was hard and I had to take care of my kids sometimes.
I would say we have a lot of great employers here in our area. We all know good employers. We all know good bosses who take care of people. But we do need to make sure that everyone's taken care of.
Yeah, and if you are a boss and you're listening to this, what do you do when your employees get sick? Do you have empathy and take care of them and
Yeah.
don't punish them for being sick?
I
I think
owned
that's
businesses in
something.
the past, and when I was younger, and running businesses, when people were sick and people would come into the office, I had a kind of a culture where we had a culture where people would come in even when they were sick,
Yeah, that's not
right?
good.
And
Yeah.
we kind of realized that that was happening, and that starts from the expectations happening from the boss, right? And so the boss has to actually both model what it looks like to say, I'm sick, I'm not coming in to put all of
Right.
you at risk,
Right.
as well as say to people, hey, you have the time and space to not be here. This is going to rip through an office just like it ripped through your
Yes.
family.
You're gonna come in sick and get everybody else sick. How does that help people? I know you've mentioned that in the you'll be treating patients and they'll be on the computer in a meeting or whatever, and they're in the hospital bed. And it's like, no, no, you gotta. So,
Take some time.
maybe
Yeah.
that's a good thing to just assess. If you work for a living, how does your employee handle being sick? Corinne mentioned on her former job that they would come in sick or they would go on vacation and attend meetings virtually and stuff like that. And it's like, no, 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 that's not a
Yeah.
healthy work environment. If you want to have good mental health, you need to be able to rest when you're sick and actually take a vacation when you're taking a vacation and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would love if you're watching this to just put anytime you worked for a bad job or anything. So here's Terry.
Yeah, Terry,
Hi,
thank you for this
Terry.
awesome, vulnerable
So
statement,
she
really.
said, I
Yeah.
missed a day of serving last week for health reasons. My managers understood, but it's going to be harder to make rent now. I'm sorry about that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I worry about, I know there are many people like you that if you have to work from being missed from being sick, it's a struggle. And then, eggs are 3 times more than they were.
Yeah.
We have
Yesterday.
rising
Yeah.
prices, so it's not like things are getting cheaper. Um,
Yeah. And so, yeah, this next phase of life for me is a lot about, bringing workers together, a lot about bringing people together to say, strength in numbers, because it's a lopsided power struggle, right? You need numbers of people who are working to kind of make sure that we're balanced with the people who are owning businesses, including myself. I've been on both sides of that equation, and it's about learning and about being good to people.
I would encourage, I know in Harrison County where I live, there is a lot of people that work jobs like at a fast food industry, jobs that make just a little bit above minimum wage. And I know that they have a high turnaround, that people are going to different jobs and trying to find better ones. And I would encourage the bosses and the managers of those to be kind to your employees, pay them a little bit better than the other restaurants, and make sure that you are taking care of them when they're sick, because then you're going to keep those employees. You won't have to spend so much in training. Um, if you treat your workers better, you're going to get better service if you treat them like human beings. So I think we need that more. I know we need that more in Indiana because again, worker protections could be better in our state.
For sure. And, we're Union rights aren't as strong as they are in many other states,
Did you know
for
this?
example.
I saw this on the 135 Facebook page that I'm a part of. Um, during the last snowstorm where it was so bad,
Hmm.
Waffle House did not close. And I saw people saying, "Can anybody pick up my son? He has to go to Waffle House. If he doesn't get there, they'll fire him." They told him they'll fire him, but it's not safe. And some of them said, "My child's having to spend the night at a hotel close by so they can get to work." And I'm like, "Oh, because you know how Waffle House is known for always
Yeah.
being open." I did not like I did not like that
Yeah.
they were saying stuff like my, kid or I'm going to be fired if I don't get there and it's not safe.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. I wish we had laws protecting workers. And if we don't, I just encourage people to work at places that will treat you better. But I'm sorry that's happening.
So, wash your hands is the moral of this story. Keep other people safe. Keep your family safe. Bleach or some disinfectant, if you look on the back, that makes sure that it actually kills norovirus. The alcohol and Purell will not do it, although it does for COVID and the flu. And just need to make sure that even 2 days afterwards, you keep things start keeping things clean, because it could be on surfaces for days afterwards, even weeks, really, but days afterwards for
The
sure. And
Yeah.
that includes, I talked about the temperature, so you need to wash your sheets and pillows, cases, etc. But you need to do that on a hot cycle. If you
Oh,
don't do it on a hot cycle, it actually will not kill the norovirus.
wow. So
So,
we're just keeping our parents out of our house right now. And then when we go to them, we're cleaning off their devices, their iPads, my phone. We're washing our hands. We leave, and once we get there, to try to prevent them from getting sick. And so far, they haven't gotten sick. But yeah, I'm just not going to have people in my house until
it's
it's
cleared.
clear.
Yeah, that's
Like, it
fair.
just doesn't make sense
Especially
to
older
get people
people
sick.
could
Yeah.
be, yeah,
That our parents, those are the ones we
autoimmune
we
diseases.
mostly have to protect. Yeah. So it's been
Uh,
rough.
okay, so moving on, and I'm opening up a site here because I want to talk about it, which is recalls from the FDA. So the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is part of HHS, which is the Health and Human Services, which is the executive branch that runs health in our country.
Okay.
The FDA is part of that, and it monitors food and drugs in our country, and approves various things, make sure that the ingredients are listed in certain ways and correctly, make sure the nutrition facts are on there, but also monitors to see if anything is causing us harm. And so when food does start to cause people harm, they immediately have the power to issue a recall.
Okay.
So the most recent recall that happened, what's today's date?
It's the 12th.
The 12th, so 2 days ago now, is on tuna and cans of tuna. Here in southern Indiana, in Kentucky, in all throughout Indiana and Michigan, and other places, the Trader Joe's around here, the tuna from them is some cans have been shown to be at risk for having botulism.
Is it a Trader Joe's brand of tuna, or is it the tuna that's going to Trader Joe's?
It is the tuna, that's a mouthful. Trader Joe's brand tuna,
Okay.
branded tuna. And I'm not sure that they have any others, but also the brand names include Genova, Van Camps, HEB, and Trader Joe's.
Huh.
And so there's a website here that the FDA has, fda.gov /safety /recalls. And so that's where you go to find the list of all of things that have been
Do you think if
recalled.
you typed in FDA food recalls in
Yeah,
like Google, it would come up that
for sure.
website?
And you want to
Okay.
go to fda.gov. And even when you're Googling, google.gov as part of it, because .gov is the
Right.
actual
Anything
website.
.com is not government.
No. And
Right.
so maybe some of them are accurate, but no, get the straight from the source. And
And
here it
then
is.
my sweet mother-in-law is asking a question.
Yep.
Is it only the canned and does not include packets of tuna?
It is only canned. And canned tuna, and all cans, including soup cans, are at risk of having botulism. Botulism is a bacteria that grows in what's called anaerobic places, so places where there's no oxygen. And so the canning process kind of sucks all the oxygen out of the can and seals it. And when the seal is kind of broken in some way or not put on there, um, it allows it makes it able to be contaminated. And so the way a can is put together and what is going on inside the can is a perfect place for botulism to grow. And so, what is botulism? The same stuff in Botox.
Right.
So, which is the toxin that comes from botulism. So, what botulism bacteria does, it makes a toxin. And in this case, you eat it, gets into your stomach, gets into your bloodstream, and goes everywhere in your body, and then gets in between where the nerves and the muscles meet and stops that from working. So the nerve says, go, muscle, work. And the botulism toxin says, no, I'm not going to let you do that. So it gives paralysis.
Oh, wow.
Is what happens. And start to get droopy eyelids. Is one of the first things, and the muscles stop working as well. And so that's why we take that toxin in small doses and put it in your forehead in order to take the wrinkles away.
Because it freezes your face.
Exactly.
Freezes the wrinkles.
And it's also used in lots of medical, like really good medical uses besides cosmetic
Like
reasons.
I've heard that you can get a shot to help with your migraines because I have migraines.
Absolutely. Migraines is one of the most common and successful uses of Botox is
Interesting.
To be able to loosen up some of those muscles that cause the stress from the stress of migraines. People who have bladder problems, Botox can be very useful. Other muscle spasms that they have in their body that might be causing what's called pelvic floor dysfunction, other things that you can use Botox for. So it's really helpful. But if it gets into your bloodstream, no longer helpful.
Can you survive it? Do you go to the hospital and get care? What happens when you get
it? Early. The earlier you go, the better, because what we do is we give a toxin, an antitoxin by IV and infuse that into your body. And the antitoxin kind of gets in the way of the toxin from working.
How quickly can doctors figure out it is botulism?
So someone comes in with botulism, there's what we call differential diagnosis, meaning what is the different things that could be this diagnosis? And one of the things that people think about is stroke, because you can get paralysis happening that looks like a stroke, facial droop.
That makes sense.
Or maybe your arm's not working the way you need it to. And so we think about stroke and always want to rule that out. And you should at home too. Don't be thinking I just had a can of tuna if your face is drooping, right?
Right.
But either way, you should be getting to the.
So is this a stroke? Is this botulism? Do doctors usually check for both?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll do the various tests. But there's not only that, there's things called Guillain-Barré. Have you ever heard
Yes, I know people that have had that. It's terrible.
So Guillain-Barré is an autoimmune reaction. It's thought to be from a virus. You have a virus,
right,
and then your body attacks it. I'm also going to talk about vaccines for a second here. There are some vaccines that have been shown to increase Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yes.
Small increases. One of the major ones that we saw was after COVID, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine increased the rate of Guillain-Barré syndrome. Very, very, very small amount, very small risk. And the others didn't. And so Johnson & Johnson really is not we don't really use that one, the Janssen vaccine anymore. But that's not the only reason for it. It's just not as effective, but very small amounts. So that is a risk and something that you should know about before putting anything in your body, that those risks happen. And what Guillain-Barré syndrome is paralysis in a very similar way, but it actually usually starts from your toes and works upward. And then starts to recede after that. And so the further north it goes, the more it gets toward your diaphragm. And once it gets to the diaphragm, you actually need to have a tube to breathe through until it goes away.
That's scary. So I know two people that have had that, and they lost the ability to walk. They had to learn to walk again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, it's full paralysis and then comes back. So you need a lot of physical therapy and treatments where they take the antibodies, the autoimmune antibodies in your body out of your blood, process called plasmapheresis and other things. So there's some bad things that could happen. So when you have any paralysis happening, yes, go to a doctor right away, not just call your primary care. Go to
yes,
emergency
it can
room.
save your life and it can help make your recovery much
Yeah,
faster.
because things that cause paralysis are
So
not going to be something that is run-of-the-mill good things that you should stay home for.
besides like hearing botulism jokes on like TV, the first time I really heard about botulism was with my husband and his mom, Liz, when they can things and they can spaghetti sauce. And when we open it, my husband's always like, make sure you hear the seal,
yeah.
make sure you smell it and look at it. So does it smell weird with botulism?
It does. And
I
so
didn't know that, so that
want
helps.
a little bit, but you want to make sure you hear the pop.
Yeah, so when you're eating homemade canned food, you want to hear that pop when you open it. Listen for it. Turn everything else off. Listen for it, because if we don't hear the pop, we throw it away.
That's right.
Just to be safe.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and home goods are what it is. The other thing, if it gets to a baby, it's called floppy baby syndrome. Yeah, it can really paralyze a baby very easily.
So if you have any of those symptoms, go straight to the doctor.
That's right.
Especially if you just ate tuna, check your tuna for Trader Joe's tuna. Is there a certain time frame, I guess? But if you just bought it recently from Trader Joe's,
I mean, if you bought it recently from
Trader Joe's, I assume if you take it back to Trader Joe's, do you get a refund?
They're required to give you a refund.
Oh, that's nice.
Even if it doesn't have botulism.
Right. Just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. So you can get a refund if you want, or you can just throw it away if you don't want to deal with the fuss.
Again, FDA.gov, search Google for FDA for
food recalls,
and also put in there .gov, so you make sure you go to the FDA actual website where it has the list. I'm just looking at it. Alfalfa sprouts 4 days ago were taken back. Tahini sesame paste was taken back. Right? So there's things that happen.
I mean, we hear about the big ones on TV, but I'm not hearing about. I didn't know about any of them. I didn't hear about tuna or anything.
Yeah, so that's where it happens.
Interesting.
So, yep. And so when it gets bad enough, they'll starts to get onto the news.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's been on the news a little bit.
Yeah, my husband's side of the family is big on that. We have like a group text, and that'll be one thing they'll put on there. Food recalls. This is not something my other side of the family puts on their group text.
That's so interesting.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I want to thank my dad. My dad commented that we're looking nice. I want to shout out my hairstylist, Dana. She owns a small business called Hair Affair in Palmyra. And Dana is a fan of both of ours.
Nice.
In her business, she would put up our signs when we ran for State House and Congress. And she would also put our flyers, and she would talk to every person that came and she did their hair, and she would offer them one. And
that's awesome.
I just love how brave she is and how smart and loving. And I just want to shout out Dana for the hair. If you live in the Palmyra area, she's incredible. She's busy because she's really good. She looks at me and she's like, we're going to do this, changed your hair this time. And she always watches TV and watches news anchors to make sure I have the most up-to-date cut. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
so love you, Dana. Yeah. Okay, what's our next topic?
What hip replacements and pregnancy or delivering a baby happen?
I have not heard of this ever.
The first, Dr. Tim, we talked about the system of how healthcare currently, the way it works is the more patients that someone sees, the more they get paid.
Right.
And so because of that, hospitals kind of pressure their staff, etc., to just try to cycle through patients. And it's so bad that there's this phrase called moving the meat you hear sometimes. Move the meat.
It doesn't sound very
very nice and loving.
Doesn't sound empathetic at all there.
To move the meat, right? So
meaning to move the patients?
Move the patients along. Keep them moving.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt.
Right. And so like if you're in a healthcare system or healthcare situation, or have an office manager or a physician or whomever is leading that office who's using kind of language like that, I think twice about staying there, right? It's just the wrong thing to be thinking about, and you're thinking about the money much more than the person. And so so what happens is that hospitals are given a code based off of your what you've had done. So you had a hip replacement, there's a code, and that code is worth 2 days, right? Or 1 day.
Right.
And that's what so if you're there for 3 days, you've outstayed your code, and that cost falls onto the hospital. right? So they want to try to get you moving through.
Right.
Same thing with having a baby, right? If there's no complications and whatnot, you're there for 1 or 2 nights and you gotta go, right? Because they want you to get going. If they stay an extra day, jams up that bed, they're not getting paid for it, for most of it at least, and
I think since
that's the pressure.
COVID, we're all very well aware that hospitals get full quickly, and they can, and it's scary. Yeah.
So right, so there's this side of it, but there's also a good side of it. And so when we did that show, I got a comment from someone saying, my doctor told me we want to get you out of the hospital as quickly as possible when you have your hip replacement.
Right.
And that's absolutely true.
Right.
Right? Why do you want someone in the hospital longer than they need to be?
Right.
Because they start to get exposed to viruses
that are at the hospital, so they
bacteria
could
at
get
that
some type of
hospital.
infection or something
Yeah.
sitting in that hospital bed.
And it's delirium inducing to be in the hospital for many people.
Right.
The more you're sitting around and not able to just freely go around your house, the more that the hip replacement will get kind of jammed up and not getting the exercise that it needs, because you can get on your feet right away afterwards now. All of these things. So your doctor will tell you, we need to get you out of there right away. And that is true. And so that aligns nicely with the code that they have, right? Where it's, you have to stay. But if something's happening that you need to stay longer, then you need to stay longer.
Right.
And you can advocate for yourself. But you need to know, and your family needs to know, that there are pressures on the hospital to get you out of there. But it's going to be on you, unfortunately.
And you probably don't know that.
Right. And so,
and like everybody with a hip replacement surgery is going to be different. People are different. We all have different issues. So some people are going to be fine to leave, and some people, just the type of person they are, their needs.
It's dangerous for you to go for one reason or another. You can advocate for yourself, but know that the people that you're talking about, the case manager, whomever it might be, might have pressures coming down from their boss saying, get this person out of the hospital.
So you need to fight for yourself. Like what if your house isn't great for you to live in with that recent surgery? You should say it and fight for yourself.
It's too dangerous.
And what if you don't have people that can care for you? That sounds like a concern.
Right. And so they should be able to give you a care manager, a case manager to help you with that. And maybe you'll have to go to some in between from the house, maybe a rehab in between, and stay there. Again, it becomes a bit of a fight, but you can advocate for yourself. The other person that's always there is the ombudsman.
Never heard that before.
Heard that term. So every hospital is required to have an ombudsman, which is a neutral party who's there to help.
Who came up with that name?
I don't actually know, but
it's so weird. I'm never going to remember it. Ombudsman.
I'll look up the root of the word. It's probably Latin. But yeah, an ombudsman is there to kind of help facilitate any legal quarrels or things before they get out of it.
I do know that there are people that help you when a loved one is in the hospital, and like it differs from what hospital you're at, whether you get better care. And even the same hospital, we've had like not great care from the hospital, and then 3 months later we had much better care, and they look like they said on the phone, they said, oh, we're fixing things, we noticed this wasn't as good, and so we're making improvements. So
that's it. You just have to know it's not all or good or all bad, right? Getting out of the hospital as quickly as possible is the goal.
Right.
That place is dirty.
Right.
That place is not anywhere near clean as your home, unless maybe it's your home right now.
So anyone will come over?
Don't discharge to Sarah's home right now. So so there's this give and take, but if there's something going on that you're feeling unsafe to leave, you can fight for yourself. Don't let them just roll over.
That's good to know. Okay, I have a question for you. So my friend Jama was talking to me about this because we both recently had surgery. I had half of my thyroid removed in December. She said, like, I was so tired. Like, I had a whole story about all the ridiculous things that happened to me when I woke up from surgery. And they just put me in the car. And then I like threw up once I got home from the nausea from being in the car and driving 40 minutes. She said you can request to stay there for 24 hours or stay there longer if needed. That's like in your rights, and they are supposed to legally let you stay there for up to 24 hours.
I don't know about the 24-hour rule that you're saying, but it depends on what's going on. It's about they're going to try to get you out of that post-surgical room as
Right.
fast as
They, I
possible
mean, so
because they're
fast.
going to close,
Right.
right? Because day surgery
Right.
places, they'll close.
Right.
And they don't want you there after hours, right?
Right.
For a whole host of reasons, cost-wise, but just if you're a nurse and you're there till 8 p.m. and all of a sudden it's 10 p.m., that sucks
Right.
for you and your family. But also, they're just not equipped for it. So the going into the hospital now just triggers a whole nother thing. And if they can't get you paid for, if they can't get it approved, then that cost might fall on you, might fall on the
Right.
hospital,
Right. Like
et
I could
cetera.
see it possibly costing me money if I requested to stay there. I was just wondering if that was an option because I was thinking if you were older and you just had a surgery and they're getting you to walk and to go home and maybe you just need to sleep a couple more hours to get the anesthesia more
Mhm.
out of your system, that might be safer for them. I was just wondering if that was an option.
I mean, just to stay
Just
overnight,
not
just
even
like a,
overnight, just to sleep. Like if I would have just
oh
been able to
yeah,
sleep like 2 hours instead of as soon as I woke up, they pushed me out.
yeah. I mean, they'll want you out, right?
But you
Again,
can say, if you're taking care of your mom, who your older mom who just had surgery, and you don't want her walking around when the anesthesia's still there, could you say,
yeah,
"Can she sleep for 2 more
it's
hours?"
hard. It's hard to be that person that's putting up the fight
Right, because then
around that.
everybody else is gonna be upset at all the extra work they're gonna have to do, and they have to find you a bed and find you someplace to go, and
Right.
that's
But at the
why.
same time, you're balancing with what's actually good for her. Like,
Right,
is it good for her to get
and then
that,
at the
or
same
should we
time, you
get her
don't
home?
want her to get sick at the hospital.
Exactly.
Right.
So getting out is if you can at all, if it's the right thing, get out of the hospital. You don't want to
Okay,
stay there.
so I'm
But
kind
if
of
you
thinking I
don't
just.
have to be right, just I feel like I need to sleep 2 hours more, or my husband can help me get into the car, and I can sleep in the car a little bit, and I'll sleep when I get there.
Right,
Do the latter, right?
right.
Not just like because it feels nice to sleep two more, because
Right.
it's
So it is better to just get out of there if you can.
but if
That's
you
I just
need
was
to,
wondering about that.
if you need to, you stay. But it's going to be an argument, and know why it's an argument, because the 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 system has been put in such a way that it needs to turn over patients as quickly as possible. Um, and so, Terry here sounds like hospital policies prioritize profits and revenue more than well-being people. So,
That was our
my,
Dr. Tim episode 1. We talk all about this,
yeah,
Terry. Yes, you're
so
right.
for me, it's the system that we have. The laws and the rules that were made can be changed
Right.
if we just had the guts to change it in Congress. And it has to be changed through the US Congress to say we don't want to prioritize paying for volume, meaning the amount of people we see. We want to prioritize for experience, for how good the experience was,
Right.
for how good the quality was. And we'll pay you more if the quality is
Right.
good. We'll pay you less if the quality is
So
good.
it's
It,
really not that hard. You just change the system. Change the system so that the people that are in charge of our care get more money for doing a better job with our care instead of getting more money for pumping as many bodies through
right.
as possible. So
And so that you're talking about hospital policies, right? I try to have a little bit of empathy for the people who are running these hospitals, who's living in a system that's telling them you can't actually stay afloat unless you see more patients as quickly as
and I
possible,
bet most
right?
doctors like you want to spend more time with your
That's
patients
right.
and you're being told you can't.
And that's anyone who gets into healthcare wants to do that.
Yeah.
But once you get there, once you start practicing, you realize very quickly that it's all set up. The rules are set up for you to move patients through as fast as possible, not to give them the most time possible, the most care and caring and empathy possible. And so it's about, I blame less the people than I blame the
The
system.
system. Yeah, we don't need to be criticizing certain people, certain hospitals necessarily. They're doing what they're told to make money to survive. And we keep seeing hospitals closing and stuff. So it's not like hospitals are making tons of money.
Some of them are.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them.
Including an IU system right here in Indiana, has $8 billion worth of reserves profits, even though it's a quote unquote not for profit.
What?
One of the good bills in State House right now in Indiana is saying that if you hospital are putting reserves aside, reserves, profits aside, and you are not for profit, you no longer will get tax breaks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, that's obvious,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you're actually a profit, and you're a for-profit hospital. You're faking being a not-for-profit, and so we need to hold them accountable. So I love that sentiment and that bill that's going through right now.
I know that there are a lot of hospitals that have closed in Indiana alone, especially in rural areas. It seems if we fixed the system, we could have more local hospitals and people could get better care closer
If you're
nearby.
not for profit and you're IU, Ascension, whatever, St. Vincent's, and you own one of these, or I should say, if you own one of these rural hospitals, and you're putting $8 billion of money aside, and you let that rural hospital go out of business,
No,
that's
no.
on the hospital. Now I blame some people.
Right.
Now
The
I'm blaming
people in
some
charge
people.
of that
Now I'm
hospital.
blaming some people
Yeah.
because they're doing the wrong thing for the people of the entire state in this case, or for especially for rural communities, because they're thinking they're doing the right thing by putting that money aside to build surgery centers in, wealthy suburban areas.
I've heard about this. I think this is more known in Bloomington, but since we have a few Bloomington friends, I've heard from them about this, about the hospital problems there. I'm sure there are other places that are doing similar. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's how the world works.
Yeah. So
Unless
what
we
can you
get in
do
there and
about
change
it?
Yeah.
What can you do about it? It's about supporting and knowing your legislatures and how they're going about putting these rules, because you can easily just say we're not going to give you tax breaks. I'm sorry,
Right.
and force them to
Right.
do the right
Change the
thing.
policy.
I'd say just having empathy for the people that you're dealing with when you're dealing with them, saying, okay, you're trying to force me out of here, out of this hospital. I understand that you must have some pressures. Can you tell me what pressure? Who's telling you that I need to be out of here?
Right.
Can you ask? And they might huff and puff and get mad about that, but like pointing out that you're not blaming that nurse that you're talking to,
Right.
or that whomever it is, but the pressures that they're having because of the system kind of throws the whole conversation for a loop.
Right.
Right? You're now not fighting with an individual. You're saying, I empathize that your job is hard right now, and you think you need to get me out of here. But my mom needs this thing.
Right.
And we need to stay to get that.
I know whenever I've had loved ones be in the hospital, it is very scary. And I have to all of a sudden become an expert on hospitals. And so I'm putting it out on Facebook. Does anybody know about this? I'll have nurses reach out to me. I'll have doctors. I'll have friends that know about health insurance, give me tips. And then I'm asking all the nice people that I'm talking to at the hospital, trying to figure it out. And I'm just learning and figuring out the system the entire time my loved one is in the hospital, and it's hard. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I worry about those people that don't have family members to advocate for them that are in the hospital. And I'm sure that is hard on you as a medical doctor who has had to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough because, again, there's pressures coming from every direction. And you're trying to do what's right for the person. And as well, it's just not good to be in a hospital. You want to do the things to get people out of it, right? So trying to sift through that. Again, if you're a patient, if you're an advocate, it's about asking why.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me to leave right now?
Right.
Then
And
they
then
need to be
tracking
able to verbalize
tracking why, and then seeing if that's a reason you can change or need to change. Yeah. I would imagine hospitals would not be the best place to go right now with everything going on. Like if you can get out as soon as possible. I would not want to be in.
I want to say don't not go to a hospital because
Right,
you
if
think
you're
of it,
sick.
but this is
If you can get out of the hospital and you can, this seems like a good time to do that.
it certainly does.
Since you
Yeah.
told us all the stuff about the wonderful information about norovirus and how long the germs stay on surfaces.
Yeah, it's everywhere. All right, so wash your hands is the number one thing to say here. After all of this, look at the FDA website when you're worried or hear about recalls. If you have Trader Joe's tuna right now, let's say, see you later. To that, you can bring back anything if that's within a recall to your store. And then Terry says, could state legislators across the country help improve the system, like state-run set of policies? Absolutely. When the major one that I was just talking about, which is it's not picking around the edges. This is going straight at the problem, and that's why I like it. And I'll give kudos to Governor Braun for really backing this and making sure that this happens. And a woman named Gloria Sachdev, who's been put into heading up health in Indiana. They are really behind this around telling these hospitals, if you keep this behavior up, we are not going to give you the tax breaks that you're getting for being a not-for-profit. And that is a action that can be done across
all 50 states.
All 50 states. The other thing that I think can be done that's really going right at the problem is saying that if we give you federal money or state money, whatever body it is, you have to open up all your books to anybody.
Oh yeah, that
makes
total sense.
Transparent.
Yes.
And I think that goes for drug companies, for pharma companies. We give them so much money, right? In different ways.
Yeah.
Open up your books.
Yeah.
Hospital companies, any company that takes Medicare dollars, Medicaid dollars, NIH, National Institutes of Health dollars, which we should talk about actually right now. There's a problem with that right now with funding being pulled for them. All of these things, like we should be able to see how that money's being spent, every single bit. And so that transparency isn't really there right now, and we need it. So let me talk about the NIH, and then we'll get going.
Okay.
In a couple of minutes. NIH is the National Institutes of Health, also under HHS, the
National Institute of Health, NIH.
Also under HHS, the Health and Human Services, right? The governing body that RFK is likely going to take over. So FDA is under that, which we talked about. NIH is under that. Medicare and Medicaid, which called CMS, is under that. All right, so we're going to talk about NIH for a second. One of the executive orders here that have been coming through recently by the president is saying that NIH funding should be cut. And what NIH funding does is gives money to lots of different places, but we're going to talk about hospitals in general and people who do research.
That's what I was going to say. Researching like diseases and things we want to find cures for.
Yeah. And so, I have inside knowledge that
just immediately hearing, knowing not very much about it, I would think we should fund things that are trying to help us stay healthy and protect us.
And so the whole thing is like, how do you cut any fraud, waste, or abuse out of that? Right.
That's right. And I'm sure there is some.
And so one of the places that they're saying is fraud, waste, and abuse, that the bigger, more prestigious hospitals like charge more for what they do than smaller hospitals. And they do it under what's called indirect costs. Okay, so they're saying this costs X amount of dollars, but we have this really fancy equipment that we use, and you got to cover it NIH.
So it's going to cost more.
The smaller place, we don't have the fancy equipment, so it's going to charge. We're going to charge you less for the indirect cost for it. And so they're saying, well, that doesn't make sense. The richer hospitals, the bigger hospitals, shouldn't charge us more to cover their fancy stuff.
And it probably just depends.
It does depend.
It just depends on, yeah.
But if you're cutting all of that, it's going to cut a ton of coverage for more advanced technologies. That's what I was going
to say. If you're going to hurt those hospitals, why would the hospitals keep getting the better machines if they cost more and then we're not covering it? It makes sense.
So we're taking a hammer to a problem that needs a scalpel.
Right.
Right. Where there's definitely places, I'm sure, and we've seen where, you're asking for more money than you really need. It's not really covering it. We talked about how hospitals sometimes are looking for profits that shouldn't be there. And they do things with that money. So yes, we got to watch out for that. And there are ways to do that. But right now we're just saying, okay, all indirect costs are going to be capped. I believe it was 15%.
It just worries me when people are in charge of organizations and it's a complex problem and they think they can just say one sentence and just fix it that way. And that's not how it works. It's hard. You got to understand it and get in there and look at it. And that's going to take time,
And there are ways to do more sweeping things and say, like we said, you're not going to get tax breaks if you're a fake not-for-profit, where you must give transparent books.
Right. That sounds like a great idea.
Right. That's fine. Let's make that happen. There are various ideas around those. But saying we're going to withdraw funding for everything, even the good things, is problematic.
I have a friend who has a child that has a disease that will make her she won't live out of her teenage years probably. And
Sorry.
the government is researching that. So this would delay or mess with that
It's
with
possible.
them. So all these like diseases that there aren't cures to that the government is working on.
If the costs are more uh, are more than what the cap is that they're going to put on the amount that they'll reimburse, now they have to find those ways to fund those costs elsewhere. And it's not going to be from the government, so they're going to have to ask for
Other
private
people
to fund it, etc., to make that happen. So it's shifting the.
So there's probably a lot of people in those jobs scurrying to try to locate
I
funding.
am aware that some of almost every hospital in the United States right now are having board meetings thinking, well, how are we going to deal with this, right? Across the country.
I wish,
how to deal with all
I
this.
personally wish that those hospitals would put that message out and explain it in ways that regular people could understand what the problems are. If all of our hospitals around the country said, we're having an issue because of this thing, this is what we need to happen, we could be aware of it and then put some public pressure on doing the right thing.
Mhm.
But typically I don't see organizations admitting to things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the speed of this, right? So this happens very fast.
Right.
And so hospitals, again, I know are meeting in boardrooms. I know of some literally that are happening as we speak right now,
Wow.
having the meetings. They need to organize what it is that
Like
they're going
so
to do.
quickly. Yeah.
Right. And figure it out. And so you haven't heard yet, but you will.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be looking in the news for this because I heard a little bit about what you said, but I didn't understand what it meant at all.
Mhm.
So now that I know, this is something we should be aware of because it's going to affect all of us because we all have to go
Yeah.
to the hospital.
Yeah. A whole bunch of grants have already been cut as
Wow.
well. And I was talking to someone this morning who has a startup that helps the elderly at home through rehab, through kind of telemedicine type way and education. And their funding was just cut, so they're just not going to have it. So yeah,
I know. I heard about this a few years ago where if you like called different hospitals and asked how much it costs to have a certain procedure, that the price would be like drastically different.
absolutely.
And so that seems to be like some places might be scamming people and some people might need it because of different
a whole session on
pricing.
Price transparency. It's
right. Because you can legally find out how much things cost. That is a law, but it's hard. And most people don't take the time to do it.
Not made easy for you.
Right. Yeah.
And there are reasons for that. The negotiations here, it all comes down to the way the system is designed, right? And it benefits people from not sharing their costs.
Right.
What other organization doesn't have consumer protections in which costs are not completely transparent and put
I
out
wonder how many people have GoFundMe's just today, some sort of crowdsourcing asking for money for medical bills. Did I like think of that number? And then the people that don't ask that need. I mean, I just think there's so many that had to have a health procedure.
I get really good physical therapy for my back. We talked about that. But I have this it's a $48 charge that they keep trying to make me pay. And I know I shouldn't pay it, right? But the insurance won't pay them, so they want me to pay it. And it's because this small little thing where the way they coded something put on this charge that's not covered. And I'm like, I didn't need that. I'm not paying it. You guys have to eat that cost.
Right.
And so I know how the system works, and it's
think how many
$48 is a lot of people for money for something.
Yeah, it adds up.
Right, and it adds up. It's also not $10,000, right? It's 48. Right. And so they just hope you're just going to go away, pay the bill. But I'm not going to just pay that bill.
Well,
because I know what's what. Yeah. And so I'd say, any type bill like that, you should immediately talk to the billing department and say, how can I get this reduced?
If you guys watched, I think it was Dr. Tim episode 2 where I talked about my surgery, and I ended up having to get a second EKG because of a mistake when the first time it was done. And it was very stressful because I was worried that something was wrong with my heart too, but it wasn't. And you said I should fight that. And I was planning on fighting it and talking about it on the show. But you know what's making it hard? It's all lumped in as one cost.
One
So I have
charge.
no idea which bill. I'm getting multiple bills for this surgery and the multiple doctors I had to visit.
You don't know where that
So I
is.
don't know which one it even is to ask about.
Right.
So
Or even if they double charge you or not.
I don't even know if they double charge me or not, because it's just a lump sum.
That you're getting, right?
And I just don't
they had to
understand why I'm not getting a paper saying this much for anesthesia, this much for this
So these are
EKG equipment,
price
this much for this
transparency.
one. Yeah, why aren't I
And
getting that in the
There's laws in place, and we'll go through it. Let's do an episode all about price transparency here.
So yeah, just so that anybody that's interested in that, I wanted to follow up, and I'm like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I don't even know which bill it
It'd be
is.
fun to try to use that as.
And I wondered if I'm going to get more bills for this surgery.
Let's go through it. Let's do it. Let's do that as an episode. We'll actually go through your bills and make it happen. Or fight my $48 bill together.
Yeah, I mean, at least I have Tim on my phone. I can call him. That's nice. Not everybody has a Dr. Tim on speed dial.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. We're going to have another
talk about your show. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, we're going to have another Father Ted with Dr. Tim, which is coming up, where Father Ted is a Catholic priest, and we're talking about his homilies and what he's been up to every weekend. We're going to, on Wednesdays, talk to him about it. Very different audience already we're seeing for that.
Yes.
We're seeing for these other
and
things.
And this specific episode, you're talking about the Pope's message, right?
Pope talking about immigration.
Yes. So the Pope said something, wasn't it yesterday?
Yep. So
yeah.
He'll educate us on it a little bit, but really he's going to be talking about working together and how we listen to one another.
Yeah. So tell everybody about us. You can still go to heyelmer.com/projectnext if you'd like to support us and get a gift. And this new show, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Talking with your uncle, a Catholic priest, and really discussing hot button religious issues that most people won't get into. When it's religion.
Yeah, he's a brave man. He goes right at it.
It's a touchy subject. You don't want to get people upset, and he's willing to go there and talk about these issues.
He's a very accepting view, and he talks about both sides of issues, all sides of it, and his job, he sees it really is about bringing people together, no matter what they think.
I wish we had more of that in this world. That's what Project Next is all about, bringing people together, less division, more unity, and making the community better. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and stay tuned. Coming up in just a couple minutes, as soon as I can type in all the things, will be Father Ted with Dr. Tim. We're going to try to get some more T names in there and add it on there as it goes, just to make it fun, right? Yeah. Let's get some more. Yeah. We could get like a bishop, something. We could do this. Okay, you guys, take care. See you soon.
See you later.